The weekend and week 8 of the fantasy football season are here, IBT family. We help you make the most of it with our starts, sits, and sleepers. Let's get fired up and cheers to the weekend. It's the IBT podcast coming at you.
Cause I've been in tune, out of touch, coming off the bench, trying to shake the funk, checking stat line, see who's up, that over under hit too clutch.
And I'm trying to avoid getting carried away with the jet sweep, sleeping on a trick play, predicting all of my moves like they seen every play. And so I'm running it back, head down, get out of my way. And it's for the law with only one thing to do. I guess I'll say a prayer and put it all on the line for you. What they don't know, something they haven't seen. I find a gap on the screen and hit them right in between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. Just one thing to say, yeah, what they don't know, something they haven't seen. I'm off that mean Joe Green, it got me fading between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is Feel Good Friday, October 27th, and the boys, they're back in time, baby. It is Seth Woolcock, and I am joined by a man who hits Halloween harder than most. He walks the walk, he talks the talk. He's Senor Eric Romoff. Eric, how are you doing as we head into the spookiest weekend of the year?
And you are not lying for a change. Usually you're prone to hyperbole in these intros, but we go hard for Halloween. Like I've got a 15-foot or so skeleton that is emerging from the earth in my front yard. My neighborhood just entirely gets after it. There's like a block that's basically like Bourbon Street every year on Halloween, like all kinds of vendors and parties. It's wild. I'm here for it.
Hell yeah, man. I got down for Halloween last weekend. I talked on the Friday show. I was going as Drake and Josh to a Halloween party with Katie. And I was reminded why I don't party much anymore, man. Because I blacked the fuck out in like 3 hours. It was terrible. Made the drinks a little too stiffies, if you know what I mean. Was just getting after it. Had a great time. There were some pictures I don't remember being in. Some beer pong games that were played that I don't remember being played. But that's Halloween, baby. Am I right?
Yeah, man, that's what you're signing up for, right? The Halloween party is stuff of legend. So the fact that you don't remember, it sounds like upwards of 50% of the night is a sign of a job well done. You have achieved what you set out to do at that party.
I guess that's a good point there. I didn't feel like I achieved shit the next day. I'll tell you that. I did not feel great. But Eric, we are here. We are on Friday, and we have a stat card for today. Thursday Night Football recap coming at you in a second. And then Adam of the South Harmon Fantasy Football Show. He's going to be joining us for some start sits and then sleepers later in the show with Justin Henry. Super excited to chat with Justin. And thanks for all the support, IBT family. We appreciate those longtime listeners and those of you new to the program. And if you are new, I'm sorry. The YouTube algorithm absolutely fucked you over today. But regardless, easiest way to support us if you enjoy this type of content, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, come back and hang out with us. And let us know your questions today. How can we help you here in week number 8? I'm seeing Evan has a question in there already. Evan, we'll get to this when our guest arrives here in just a little while. We're going to get to our Thursday Night Football recap first. And then Albert's in the chat. Good afternoon, IBT. Good afternoon to you, Albert. Thanks so much for joining us, man. And let's get to it here, Eric, in the Thursday Night Football recap.
Sometimes taking that first step out the door is the hardest thing to do. Give it a chance, you'll be begging for more. Save the spot just for you. We're all somewhere in between.
How about you come to the place you can have some fun? Ain't gotta worry about knowing not what it means. Come and give me another, cause the night is young. At least I so thought.
This just in. Breaking news. Front and center.
And we usually come in here on Fridays, Eric, and we usually talk a little shit on some Thursday night football games that let us down from a fantasy perspective. However, this was a glorious one, man. I feel like almost everyone delivered, except if you're a James Cook manager. I apologize. But just one turnover for the Bills in this game, pretty even back and forth the whole way. It ends up being Bills 24, Buccaneers 17. What did you think of this? Was this the greatest Thursday night football game ever for fantasy managers?
No, not by a long shot. Look, we've seen some stinkers on Thursday night, right? So the bar is relatively low. This was more competitive than most Thursday night football games, but this thing was a pain to watch, right? Like Buffalo was in absolute control of this game pretty much from the jump, and then at the very end, Tampa Bay executed like the 9-minute drill while they were down 2 scores, just like completely plotting their way down the field, got saved by several penalties. I mean, that the fourth quarter of that game was painful to watch. Obviously, Mike Evans finally got there. We saw some of the scoring that we were all waiting for as fantasy managers in that sequence, but it was not good football. I did not enjoy the fourth quarter of that game at all.
You know what I did enjoy? I enjoyed the Gabe Davis breakout. He's the first Thursday night football shout out of the day. 9 for 87 and 1. Third lowest ADOT of his regular season career with at least 5 targets. Second most targets in his career. Most regular season receptions in his career by 3. I mean, it is insane what we saw from Gabe Davis here on Thursday night. Is this sticky? Is this sticky? Because I feel like with Gabe Davis, it's never really that sticky from one week to another. But we did highlight it in one of our video on demands a couple weeks ago. Scott's bought in. Is this the breakout? Is it here?
I mean, I guess by Gabe Davis standards, it's here, right? This is probably going to be the best that we see him play. The tail of the tape on him, like we talked about him as a potential post-hype sleeper heading into the season, right? Like you could get him for free, and by all means, by leaps and bounds, he has outplayed his ADP. But if you take a look at how he's actually generating these fantasy points, it's basically touchdown or bust for him, right? Like he's still prone to these huge swings, right? He's got a 1 point week, a 3 point week, a 5 point week, and then he's got some 10s, some 15s, some 20s. And the difference between those is touchdown productivity, right? So like if you believe that Gabriel Davis is going to be the leading wide receiver in touchdowns on the Bills, then yes, you very much so have a path to where he is going to keep producing at this level. But touchdown scoring is highly variant. So I think we're probably going to see a downswing coming with a few more boom weeks before the year's over.
Okay. And what about Dalton Kincaid in this one? It was 5 for 65 and 1 for him. Almost had a couple touchdowns. They were looking for him early and often. Great to see that. I think he's a thing. I think we can say that. We know fantasy managers spent up some fab after the news of Dawson Knox going down with that surgery earlier this week. And then Khalil Shakir, is he a thing? 6 for 92. I think he will make some waiver columns. I don't know if he'll make ours at IBT though.
Yeah, I'll start with Shakir, right? Like he's much more of like the DFS showdown dart throw, right? Like he ran a good number of routes. Credit to him, like he's managed to surpass Hardy on the wide receiver pecking order depth chart. So he'll be out there a fair amount, but his productivity is going to kind of ebb and flow akin to Gabriel Davis, right? So he's worth rostering. He's young enough to where, this could be the start of something. So you want to have him on your bench to watch if that plays out or not. But not someone that I'm looking to get into starting lineups anytime in the near term. Dalton Kincaid, on the other hand,
yeah,
I mean, this was the breakout that we were looking for, right? Like we all knew the volume was coming with Dawson Knox on the surgery table for his wrist, but the way in which they utilized him, he was a point of emphasis when they were in scoring position, right? They schemed him with that motion route that Tampa Bay jumped, right? That was very much so designed to get the ball in his hands at the goal line, but also his touchdown itself. As Josh Allen was rolling out, there were 2 other wide open receivers that easily could have had the first down. He continued scrambling and waited for that window to open for Dalton Kincaid so he could cruise in for that touchdown, right? So not only is he now a much safer floor play because the volume is all his, But I mean, he's going to have ceiling to push into the top 5 on any given week because they are looking to get the ball to him when they are in scoring position.
It's happened, baby. The rookie tight ends are loud and proud here in 2023. Last couple notes on the game. Rachaad White stat line on the ground, 9 for 39, but 7 for 70 receiving, and he looked good. It wasn't just like some of this was kind of some junk play down the line, but at the end of the day, man, I really loved what we saw from the second year back for Tampa Bay, and he's a guy I've never been a big fan of. I don't think he's that talented, but he showed some burst here. So it was good to see that, especially with Chase Edmonds kind of back nipping at his heels a little bit. Final point. I think these defenses are actually kind of cheeks. I think I'm going to continue to attack the Bills a little bit. They've had a lot of injuries back there, man. I don't think you can get past these injuries to Matt Milano and the boys over there. So I know they're still technically on paper the number 2 defense to stay away from for fantasy quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield had 20 plus points in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues last night. So I'm interested in maybe fading these defenses a little bit here down the stretch.
I think that's fair to say, right? Like Tampa Bay is still relatively tough against the run, as evidenced by James Cook's down week. But a lot of what they do is they stack the box, right? So like it's also fairly easy to scheme the counterpunch against that. So Tampa Bay isn't really in that consideration. Buffalo, I'll expect them to get incrementally better as the season goes on. But for where we sit today, they haven't been the Iron Curtain that they were sort of billed out to be. What I will not stand for is you giving any love to Baker Mayfield for this performance. Yes, I mean he got there in terms of his fantasy output, I should say, but he did it on back-to-back plays that bounced off of a defender's helmet into his receiver's hands, right? Like just consecutive versions of the most fluky outcomes you can imagine. So yeah, he got the points, but you run that sequence 10,000 more times, it's probably only happening, once or twice more. It was incredibly unlikely that it played out that way.
All right, well, let's go ahead. Let's get to the people's questions here in matchup management. We're going to close the book on Thursday Night Football and get to an awesome Sunday slate coming up here after the drop.
Who you got?
Matchup management.
Who's it gonna be?
All right, and joining us for matchup management tonight is one half of maybe my favorite program on the internet right now because they are so damn funny. He is South Harmon's fantasy football's leader, the leader of the shitheads, Adam. What's up, Adam?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on, man. Glad to come in here and talk some matchups this week. Mike and I love playing best ball, so we don't have to worry about who to start. You guys were talking Gabe Davis earlier. You love when you don't have to worry about if he's going to give you 1 or 20. You just take that 20. But in lineup leagues, man, a lot different. And I'm excited. Let's talk about what are the matchups and what are the players we want to start or sit today,
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I want to start with the Rams running backs. I put Darrell Henderson on the thumbnail today, man, because I think it's a trap play. I think this is one that people went to him last week, a little uneasy, not knowing who would be the starter, and it was him coming right off the couch. But he's going up against a Dallas Cowboys defense that I think is actually better against running backs than we're giving them credit for here, Adam. Week 1, they held Saquon at about 9.3. Week 2, they shut Brees down. Week number 4, Ramondre Stevenson shut down. Even week number 6, the last time we saw the Cowboys, Austin Eckler, 10.2 PPR points. Maybe this is just running backs not 100% healthy against them, but I'm a little concerned here that Henderson's going to be a letdown, especially with Royce Freeman taking some of those snaps.
Yeah, I mean they kind of split carries too. I mean, I would say this: I think a lot of people that played Henderson last week didn't really have many other options. I would hope, at least, right? You shouldn't have been playing him ahead of other candidates that are worthy. So I would definitely be more cautious about playing him this week. If you don't have anyone else, go ahead, but I mean, he'd probably be towards the bottom, like RB3 type territory for me this week. If I had to play him, I'd put him in there, but I would not feel good about it, man.
Eric, where do you have Darrell Henderson ranked? Because I'm scared shitless. I agree with Adam. He's still probably in that RB3 range in PPR formats, but still not super excited about it.
Yeah, I've got him at 28, so on the back end of RB3 range.
There you go.
And the points that you laid out are exactly the case, right? Like Henderson and Freeman literally split right down the middle, right? Like 52-48 in terms of snaps, 60-40 in terms of rush attempts. Gets a little bit closer to even when you account for some of their work as receivers. So, you're getting a guy that is going to get, in best case, about half the work, and he's getting about half the work against a very stout Dallas Cowboy run defense, right? They are 26th in the league in fantasy points per game allowed to the position, 3.6 yards per carry. Henderson obviously gets involved as a pass catcher. They're at 6 yards per reception to running backs, which is 28th in the league. So really, the opportunity is limited, and those limited touches are going to be in an unideal circumstance.
All right. Not much backlash there for us. Let's get to a couple trade questions here in the chat, guys. First one is Evan. Would you trade DeAndre Hopkins and Kareem Hunt for Devonta Smith, or wait to see if D-Hop gets traded? Adam, how are you handling this heading into Week 8?
Man, is this dynasty or redraft here?
Redraft. This part, yeah.
I mean, Devonta Smith. The thing is, right now his like featured in the offenseness is not very good anymore. The guy that we saw a lot last year, AJ Brown's been the clear alpha in this offense lately. You have DeAndre Swift is actually, for a Jalen Hurts-led offense, getting a lot of passing work. I want Devonta Smith over DeAndre Hopkins. I think you can probably replace Kareem Hunt in a redraft league pretty easily. Yeah. So I'll still take the Devonta Smith side. I don't know, man. The other thing is DeAndre Hopkins kind of feeling dusty right now. If he gets traded, it's going to have to be somewhere elite. Otherwise, I probably don't care. So I'll take the Devonta Smith side here just because I think Kareem Hunt's a little easier replaced in a redraft format.
I'm with you there, Adam. Eric, we haven't seen the ceiling and the consistency from Devonta Smith this season. That said, is there even a situation that you could see that D-Hop goes to that's better than Tennessee, where he is getting all the volume, although it's, very poor targets at that?
Yeah, I think that's the point to underscore here, right? Like there really isn't a situation where he's going to step into this type of target volume anywhere else in the league, right? We can set aside the fact that I don't think his market is going to be all that active, so the likelihood of him getting traded is relatively low. But anywhere that he goes, like, he's going to be an ancillary piece, right? So yes, they are 5.0 A. Ryan Tannehill targets or whatever is to come with Will Levis targets, but
the split of Will Levis and Malik Willis, man,
Yeah, exactly. If he's getting 10 to 14 of them, that's where his highest output will come. So, I'm not bullish on him being traded as a probability. I don't think it will change his circumstance for the better. And I'm right here with you two. I'd much rather have the Devonta Smith side of this one.
It's just attaching yourself to better offenses. The better days will come, I think, for Devonta Smith. And here's one from our guy Tingley here on YouTube. Adam, how do you feel about Devonta Smith for Brandon Ayuk? Are you making this move?
Yes, give me Brandon Ayuk here. Give me Brandon Ayuk for sure here. I think you'll see volatility for both of these guys, right? There are still some mouths to be fed in the Niners offense, but Debo's not 100%. I mean, Chris McCaffrey's still going to eat, but I think Brandon Ayuk's already kind of proven to be the alpha in the offense. There's just a lot more mouths there. So I would say the floor is actually a little higher with Ayuk, and I think the ceiling probably is higher too. I'll take Ayuk here over Devonta Smith this year every single time.
Eric, are you here already? We were taking Devonta Smith in the second round of redrafts just a couple of months ago, and Brandon Ayuk back in the 6th or 7th round. Have the values flipped that much for you?
Yeah, I'm absolutely here, right? Like, if you talk about their skill sets, he has as much talent to be a game breaker anytime the ball's in his hand as Devonta Smith is, right? And his floor is exponentially more stable, right? Like, he very clearly is the best receiving option on this team, right? Like, you can make an argument for Christian McCaffrey, and obviously that's fair, but he very much so is the alpha receiver for San Francisco. And he's got that steady contribution with the skill set to break one anytime that he hauls a ball in. So I like that combination. It's hard to come by. So I'll go with the Ayuk side too.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Are you there? Are you not?
I don't know. I don't know where I am on. I think Devonta Smith is one of the hardest players for me to rank rest of season because we know what the upside is. It's just we haven't got that from the Eagles offense. And I still believe, I think it's so hard for me to turn off the talent. And Brandon Ayuk, honestly, like the last couple weeks have been a little bit disappointing. He hasn't scored since week 1. So I think there are some holes in his game. And this week, it's not like we're going to get Brock Purdy. So I am a little worried that come Monday, we might feel differently about this one.
Are we sure that him losing Brock Purdy is a bad thing?
That's, I think, the other question I will have answered here, if it is the system or if it is Brock Purdy. I'm excited to see Sam Darnold out there, man. I think Sam can sling it around the yard a little bit.
It's been fun to see in a lot of these Superflex Dynasty leagues I'm in, what Sam Darnold commanded on the waiver wire, because you rarely get like waiver wire players that are going to actually mean something for teams. So interesting.
We got maybe the question of the year here from my buddy Ginge on Facebook. Me and Yuto want to know your thoughts on dollar margs at Applebee's. Adam, have you had the Dollaritas? Have you gone after them before, and your thoughts on them?
So I haven't had the Dollaritas like the new ones. I've had like margaritas from Applebee's. I used to be my first job actually. I was a host server at Applebee's long time ago, man. So, for $1, I'll oblige, but they're nothing all that special relative to margaritas personally. But you give me $1, I'm in, man. I'm been on almost anything for $1. Mike and I like to get the cheap options,
Yeah, I feel you, man. We used to have this place on Main Street in my college town. It was 50-cent wells, and ooh. I never I grew up with that. You know what I mean? So I kind of thought, hey, this is gonna be a usual thing. No, that's not the case, Eric, at all. Your thoughts on dollar margs here at Applebee's? They're back, baby.
Yeah, they are so back, and this is this is kind of like the DeAndre Hopkins of the drinking world, right? Like this is the volume play. You're not really going to enjoy it while it's happening, but it'll get the job done, right? Like you go out there, you put down $5, $6, $10 worth of margs, and you're in for a good time on a pretty cheap budget.
Yeah, I would say the other good thing about these is they're gonna taste better the more you drink, right? They're gonna, as you get going,
the faster you drink.
Yeah, you just be a little more palatable each time,
There we go. The hard-hitting questions over here on the IBT podcast this week. Let's talk some start sits, boys. All Adam, right. Is there someone that sticks out to you at the quarterback position that you're either playing that consensus maybe doesn't love, or that you're avoiding that's in that consensus top 12?
Yeah, I think this week, man, I feel like I'm gonna sit Dak. I'll be honest.
Thank you.
Oh, you got Dak? All right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mike and I just went through on our 4D Chess podcast, and we're talking about we have a chart where we start. It's called Spike and Consistency Weeks, right? So we're kind of charting, and it's a primarily best ball featured chart, but it's showing you basically when guys are helping you win weeks, and in best ball when guys are basically not having a chance at making your lineup, right? So the crazy part about Dak is he was number 1 overall at the position the 1 week he spiked. But outside of that, he's basically worthless, like 24 overall or lower. Like he's had a couple teen weeks, but it's just been really feast or famine with not a lot of feast. And I don't see it this week, man. Personally, for me, if I have Dak, you're probably in a Superflex league forced to play him. But if you have other options that are in similar ranges, I'd just be putting Dak on the shelf until I see more consistency from him personally.
Eric, how do you feel about that? Because I'm with Adam here, man. This is a Rams defense, too. As young as they are, as many rookies are on this defense, they've done very well against quarterbacks. The only time they've been lit up by the quarterback position is when they face these mobile guys, which I don't think Dak is at this point in his career. So your thoughts here on the Cowboy signal caller?
Yeah, he's definitely someone to avoid if you can. Like was mentioned before, I'm one of the sad sacks, specifically in Scott Fishbowl, that is forced to fire up Dak Prescott.
Yep.
So there certainly isn't any better option. Sam Darnold also went for a pretty penny when waivers ran in SFB, and yeah, like specifically the things that Dallas likes to do when they're throwing the ball. LA is pretty good at limiting that, right? Like the perimeter corner play is no joke for these Rams, and just the offense in general, right? Like much more of a slow-paced kind of plotting system and scheme they're running out there. If you're going to be absent of these explosive plays, you're hoping that volume can make up for it. And I don't think that Prescott's going to check either of those boxes this week.
Okay. All right. Getting some questions here in the chat that we'll shift over to before we get back to quarterbacks. Here's a dicey one, Eric, from Antonio. Would you do DeAndre Swift and Amari Cooper for Justin Jefferson? My other wide receivers are A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, JSN, Josh Downs, Rashee Rice, and his other RBs are Kyron, Breece Hall, Jalen Warren, and Tyjae Spears. So it could leave him thin at the position. But I think we feel a lot better about Justin Jefferson today than we did 2 weeks ago with how the Vikings offense is rounding into form and they have a shot at the playoffs at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fair to say that we feel better about Jefferson today than, a couple weeks ago. But, the thing that would make me pass on this trade is just what it does to your running back room, right? Like, obviously Breece Hall's coming on and we're very excited about the stretch run for him. But after that, like, we don't exactly know when Kyron's going to come back. You've got Jalen Warren, you got Tyjae Spears, guys that, can certainly continue to emerge and potentially take the job, but don't have it locked up by any means, right? So, I would love to have Justin Jefferson added to that very strong wide receiver core, but you're creating a huge hole in your starting lineup by doing so.
Adam, your thoughts? He is 6-1 here, if that matters to you.
So, a couple things here in the redraft format. Like, I think how many starters you have to play comes into play in a trade like this,
sure.
Right? So if you're talking like a really shallow one, you only got to play 7 people, 8 people, 9 people, something like that, and it's a single quarterback format. I think you could probably pull it off here. If you're going to do this, though, like, understand DeAndre Swift right now, the last 6 weeks, he is one of the most consistent floors at running back, which is something I bet you no one thought was possible, right? Given the last couple seasons, what we saw. He's in this Philly offense, and this is with him not even really getting a lot of goal line opportunities. Like that tush push, whatever you want to call it, the brotherly shove, he's not going to have a lot of these goal line carries. But here's the thing. He still carries some injury risk. So if you were going to do this, I think the big thing you have to do is figure out every single week, you need to take a look at your fab budget. Every single week, you need to be hitting the waiver wire. Which injuries are happening? Who's out there? Who can I get? Kind of almost shifting your roster construction now because you're so goon squatted at receiver. You need to almost have in the back of your mind, all right, I'm not going to get Swift back, but how can I weekly try to replace as much of his production as possible? It's not going to be easy. But I think if you're 6-1 and it's a shallower starting format, you could pull it off. You just have to really think about how am I going to replace DeAndre Swift, who right now is honestly, looking like a league-winning running back. So it's risky, but I think it would depend on the format and if you feel like you can get that stuff down at the wire.
Yeah, looks like here it's a pretty general redraft team construction here. 1 flex, 2 RB, 2 wide receiver. And listen, Jalen Warren last week looked like he was finally going to break that streak of double-digit PPR points, and he came through for the touchdown for the Steelers and your fantasy teams. I was pretty happy to see that with a lot of exposure to him and just being a Steelers fan. But in general, I think he can be a spot start RB2 if you have him. And don't forget, he has Tyjae Spears on his bench, that's a lottery ticket right now.
Right.
It could mean maybe nothing come Tuesday, but
Derrick Henry trade.
Yeah, he could be a starting running back for the Titans.
The other thing I look at, too, is with this format he just gave you, right? So you got 2 running backs. So you're going to take definitely a downgrade here until you get Kyron back or you can find something on the wire. But if you think about this with 2 receivers and a flex, man, you can basically slot in 3 guys that would be easily first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
Right? A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson come the playoff run. If this team looks like it's already going to make the playoffs, oh, man, I think I might do this, man. I think I might do it. It's just shallow enough, but you do need to figure out the waiver wire, see if you can find cheaply in trades some running back production. Maybe you can trade away a guy like JSN or some of these other receivers you have down the line. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I mean, I think I would do it. It's just tough, man. DeAndre Swift has been an absolute boss this year.
And I think the other thing you're doing here on this 2-1 is you're freeing up a roster spot. You can go out there and grab a running back. Eric, you suggested Devin Singletary a couple weeks ago in our Beat the Waiver Wire segment. He's still floating out there in some leagues. There's some other depth running backs that you could add to your bench with this trade. So, yeah, 2-1 here. I'm with Adam. I'm making this trade. Here's one from our guy Alex. PPR need one. Najee Harris, DeAndre Hopkins, and Henderson.
Oof.
Eric, why don't you take this one first? Because I don't have much to say good about any of these players right now.
Yeah, I don't know if any of us are. I mean, technically, I've got Najee Harris one spot ahead of DeAndre Hopkins, who are both a handful of spots ahead of Henderson this week. I'll break my rule of following rankings and go with DeAndre Hopkins here, just because that volume is so steady, and we never know on a given week if we're going to see Jaylen Warren eat into more workload for Najee Harris, and he's one of these inefficient, volume dependent kind of guys where just a handful of touches going the other direction can mean very bad things for his week. So I'll hold my nose and go with the Hopkins side.
Adam, how you feeling about it?
Yeah, I think the reality is, like, you look and Najee Harris basically scored a touchdown, and that's why he was a little more meaningful for people, right? And you're playing Jacksonville. I'm not going to say he can't score a touchdown, but I don't know this is going to be a good game script for him. I don't know that the game script necessarily matters. I just don't think there's a ton of scoring opportunities for Najee typically in this offense. So I think with the PPR play, full PPR here, I'm just going to go ahead and go with Hopkins. I'll be honest, they're both gross, man. I mean, we got quarterback situation we don't know what's going on with, but if you told me right now I have to shoot for upside right now with somebody, I guess it would be Nuke. But man, it's I'll be trying to hit the wire at some point too, man. This is not ideal.
Yeah, and DeAndre Hopkins, I'm facing a couple decisions in some leagues like Rashid Rice over him, if Joshua Palmer's good to go, and I think I am going to go with those younger wide receivers. But there is still some upside with DeAndre Hopkins. Like, we don't know what Will Levis is going to be. He could chuck it deep. We know this guy has a cannon on him. We could see Nuke finally get a touchdown. He's been so close so many times, just stepping out of the back of the end zone. So I think there still is some like unknown upside here with him. And I think it's a game script they're probably going to have to be trailing. So I'm with you guys here. It's gross, Alex. Look to the waiver wire if there are any better options out there, but it probably is Nuke here for us. And one here from Tingley. Who should I stream week 9 by? Love, Carr, Tyrod Taylor, Geno, or Minshew? So I'll say this, Tingley. I just made this play. I have Matthew Stafford in a league, and I don't like the matchup coming up next week. So I went ahead and added Gardner Minshew to my squad. He's playing the Carolina Panthers next week. This is a leaky Panthers defense. He's my favorite play here in week 9. Adam, I know you probably haven't seen all the matchups right at this point, but who do you think is your favorite gun to the head here in week 9 for our guy Tingley?
Yeah, I'm looking at it here. Man, to me, it's a toss-up between Geno and Minshew. Jordan Love's actually been okay from a fantasy perspective. He's at home versus the Rams that week. I'm not going to completely rule him out, but honestly, I've not been on the Jordan Love bandwagon, and this bandwagon feels like it's coming apart pretty quick. I'm gonna go ahead and go with Geno by a hair here. I think it's him or Minshew for me personally. I think Tyrod is a safe floor, but not a ton of upside, and I don't really think Carr is the greatest play given his health.
Eric, where do you fall on it?
And we are going to be zero help for the question here.
All over the place. I love it.
Yeah. So the two names that jumped out for me were Gardner Minshew and Derek Carr. I think because he at least made the card for all three of us, the answer is probably Gardner Minshew. Yeah. But Derek Carr, look, he's got the gold star matchup against the Chicago Bears defense that has just been getting torched left and right. And while it is ugly, he is currently number 6 in the league in pass attempts. He's number 1 in the league in deep ball attempts. So, I mean, if he's going to be, continuing to chuck the ball around the yard like this against the Chicago defense, this sets up to be closer to his ceiling week in week 9.
Okay. All right. A little Derek Carr love. My issue with Derek Carr is I'm always looking at the wrong fucking stats. I'm always looking at the Raiders upcoming matchups for him. So that's where he gets me a little screwed over. But it looks like some Minshew love there for Tingley. Here's one from George. Need 2.5 point PPR league. Isaiah Pacheco, Aaron Jones, and Jonathan Taylor. Where do you go here, Adam?
Oh, man. This one's tough here. I'm going to play Pacheco pretty easily. The first 2 weeks, man, when you started watching the season, it looked like this was going to be a 3-way fuck fest at the running back position for the Chiefs, and it looked like you wanted no part of anybody. Now Pacheco's really starting to solidify himself as the primary early down running back in this offense. Keep in mind, right? This is for this week, right? Now, I was on last week. Now we're in this week, right? Anybody that's playing against the Denver Broncos, I'm just firing them up. Like so that is an auto start for me right away. I'm gonna go ahead and go with Jonathan Taylor. This is my other one. Like Aaron Jones right now, man. I love the guy, but I'm starting to get a little concerned here until I see something. So I think I'll sit him of the three.
I don't know if he's healthy. I don't know if he's healthy. I don't think A.J. Dillon's leading this team in receiving a week ago if Aaron Jones is healthy. So I'm with you too. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to see a lot of action this week for the Colts. It's a Saints matchup. It's kind of gross, Eric. Can you stomach it though over Aaron Jones?
Absolutely, right. And everything that we've laid out here is spot on, right? Like starting with Adam, the Chiefs giving the first carry of the season to CEH was just like the biggest middle finger to anyone that drafted or rostered either McKinnon or Pacheco. But since then, Pacheco's absolutely come on. We've talked about this before on the show. My guy catches balls now. Four receptions last week, 6 the week before. He's got a 3, he's got a 2, he's got a 4. Like this was not part of his projection, and now that it is clearly part of his game, he is an elite option week in and week out. He's almost never going to be in that sit consideration unless you just have a crazy roster. And then the second piece is going to be Jonathan Taylor. Look, he faced arguably the league's most challenging defense in the Browns last week and did pretty well for himself. So not as concerned about the Saints. I do think we see him continue to take incrementally more work than Moss with each passing week. And Aaron Jones is not right. Like I hitched my wagon to Aaron Jones in DFS last week, so like I've got a little bit of personal bias baked into this. But actually watching the tape, like my guy is clearly not at 100%, and I don't think that we can really feel safe firing him up until we see him perform up to the level that we've previously expected out of him.
And I know it's half PPR, but the last point I'll make is Jonathan Taylor last week versus the Cleveland Browns. My Cleveland Browns, 3 catches, 45 yards too. Not just getting the carries, but you saw some explosion in the passing game. So I think the Moss thing is going to kind of be left for dead here before you know it.
Gardner Minshew's been great for the running backs of the Colts. I will say that. The dump offs are just plentiful, so I love that. And Adam, I love having you here on the show, man. You and Mike bring such an interesting perspective here to the fantasy football industry and community. So I appreciate everything you guys are doing over there at South Harmon Institute of Technology. Tell us how we can find you and best support you. And everyone in the chat, make sure you guys are hanging around because we'll get some more questions and some sleepers here after we let Adam go.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You can follow me on Twitter at ATM4DChess. Make sure the main thing you're doing, if you like podcast form or you like the video form, check us out on YouTube at South Harmon Fantasy Football, as well as our podcast feed, South Harmon Dynasty Football. You can get that on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. So those are the main 2 things, man. We put out content almost daily. Like later on today, we're going to do a preview show. I'll tell you one thing, man. If you're into the spooky season stuff, Sunday evening, right in between the 4 o'clock games and the Sunday night football game, we have a Halloween recap show. So every Sunday we do recaps right before the Sunday night football game. This one's going to be some work I put a lot of hours into, man. It's going to be fun. So
hell yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that, Adam. Guys, leader of the shitheads, Adam, take care. Have a good rest of your afternoon here and weekend, and we'll catch you soon. And guys, let's get ready for some sure things, Sleepers of the Week.
Appreciate it, Seth and Eric.
Thank you.
It's the sure thing. Sleepers of the Week.
This is your thing, sure thing, sleepers of the week, and we are joined by NFL and NBA betting analyst, the host of the Justin Henry Show. He's the Justin Henry, a dude who always looks so damn cool. What's up, Justin?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. How are the vibes hitting you as we approach the Friday evening?
It's hard to believe we're already almost 8 weeks, halfway through the season. We're in week 8 already, man, and a lot of the fantasy season has gone by. We are halfway through the fantasy regular season, so I think a lot of people want to make their strong takes in the off season, and then now we're midway through. Where do we rebound from here if you have a bad team? How do you take advantage if you have a good team? I think there's a lot of good questions to be asking right now, especially in like the buy and sell market.
Yeah, I'm with you. And we have some active people in the chat today, Justin, asking about trades. Do you mind if we get to a couple of those questions before we get to our sleepers?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, here's the first one from Matt Rich. What's up, Matt? Thanks for joining us today, man. Dynasty League 4-3 contending. He has just a plethora of quarterbacks, AR-15, Deshaun Watson, and Minshew, but he's looking to possibly upgrade. Should he be trading Deshaun Watson plus a 2026 third rounder for Kirk Cousins, Justin? How are you feeling about this?
It's tough because in a dynasty league, right, and you feel like you're a contending team, you don't want to give up too many valuable pieces to go chase a championship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks because he has the pieces here. He's got AR-15, he's got Deshaun, like 2 valuable quarterbacks. You can call Deshaun valuable if you want right now,
Yeah.
but 2 valuable quarterbacks in dynasty. So I don't really like giving up Deshaun at his lowest right now. I think that there's a window for him to bounce back on value, potentially even this season, right? He's dealing with the shoulder injury. So I don't love this deal, to be honest with you. I think that there's another quarterback, maybe somebody that has a longer shelf life than Kirk Cousins. If you're going to give that up plus draft capital, I don't know if this is the right move for this type of team here.
Eric, how do you feel about it? It looks like Matt can also potentially wiggle Jared Goff free from that manager. Would you like it better with Goff? It's a stud team, man. I mean, Amon-Ra, Chris Olave, Ridley, JSN, Brees, Kamara, like he has the pieces, as Justin said. Does Goff or Kirk get him over the hump and worth giving up Deshaun at its lowest?
Yeah, to Justin's point, I would much rather get Goff back in this deal than Kirk Cousins, right? Because you've just got more runway with Goff, right? Kirk is a bit long in the tooth. But on the whole, I don't really like going through with this kind of deal. Like if you talk about your stable of your 3 quarterbacks that can play this year, so technically 2, Watson definitely has the highest upside of the lot and has higher upside arguably than Kirk Cousins if everything clicks for him, right? So like you're giving away a guy that you're limiting your upside by sending Watson out the door, I should say. And with Kirk Cousins coming back, like you can get, Kirk Cousins light production out of, Minshew on a week in and week out basis, right? So you're kind of unnecessarily sending out a 2026 third, which, feels kind of negligible as we sit here in 2023. But the reality is all you're really getting is, a bit more stable at quarterback with Kirk Cousins. And I just don't think that's an equitable exchange.
Yeah, I think I'm with you guys here on this one. And I think my advice for Matt would be just continue to run that waiver wire, man. We're seeing injuries at quarterback. Like Tyson Bagent could actually be a play this week against the Chargers. Like I know it's super flex. I know they're hard to come by. You're probably going to spend up some fab for them. But actually, sorry, this is only a 1 quarterback league. So yeah, I think you're fine here. Not giving up that draft capital there. Matt, appreciate the question, man. Hope you come back, tune into the channel again. We got Amister saying, yo, start Deontay Johnson or Calvin Ridley. Justin, this is kind of a head scratcher. Deontay Johnson on the injury report once again with that hamstring that he missed all that time with. However, he does say he's going to be active. He's going to be out there on Sunday. Do you trust him with the injury popping up again this week, or are you going with Ridley, who he's been hard to trust as well?
Yeah, and I've been critical of both of these guys, even to come into the season, just their ADP and their valuation in the marketplace. So both of these guys, I had more of the wide receiver 3 range, and they're kind of filling out there. The only problem I see with Deontay Johnson is there's not a lot of upside for him, right? He's more of a pass catcher, going to get open guy. So we could see the 3 to 5 catch range, and that wouldn't surprise me. I think you're chasing a touchdown if you start Deontay Johnson, which we know he's not, this elite touchdown scorer in the game today. But with Calvin Ridley going up against the Steelers, this is actually this was one of my sleeper candidates that we would have been talking about today, but I'm going to leave that one off and just give it to you now. This Steeler team has been giving up all kind of yardage and touchdowns to outside receivers. And this is setting up as a plus matchup for Calvin Ridley this week. So I would chase the upside here with Calvin Ridley, who probably has touchdown potential this weekend.
Eric, how do you feel about it? The Steelers cornerback room, it hasn't been great, man. Patrick Peterson, not who I think. We knew who he was coming into this year. He's over his prime. Levi Wallace just hasn't been able to put it together either. And then Joey Porter Jr., talented kid, but still very raw. Is this a beatable Steelers secondary for Calvin Ridley and the boys?
Yeah, I think it is, right? And we've got Calvin Ridley coming in with presumably Zay Jones on the shelf again, right? So a little bit more volume available to him. When Zay Jones is not out there, they move him around the formation a little bit more. So he'll be able to get into the coverage of Levi Wallace and to a lesser extent Sullivan more than he would if Zay Jones was out there. And he's the type of player that can absolutely take advantage of those plus matchups. So if he's going to get incrementally more of them, that's all the better for his perspectives for this week. But also Deontay Johnson on the other side, like your Steelers, like they're not this pass heavy, pass first, high volume, high pace kind of offense, right? Like maybe they'll get there one day when Matt Canada is in the rearview mirror, but they're not there now, right? So they're not throwing the ball enough to support 2 fantasy viable receiving options. So I think you'd be taking a big risk firing up Deontay Johnson, especially because he's still nursing that hamstring injury.
Yeah, that's something that could re-injure itself very easily, knowing Deontay Johnson on Sunday. He's saying I could start both and bench Higgins, but I trust him after the bye. Yeah, don't bench Higgins this week. I think we're going to see some of those good days for him. But appreciate the questions either way, Amister. Hope you subscribe to the channel, come back and hang out with us again. And guys, let's get some Sure Thing Sleepers of the Week. Justin, it is your first Sure Thing Sleeper of the Week on the In Between Fantasy Football podcast. How we feeling? We feeling frisky? What do we got for us?
So Calvin Ridley, we talked about guys that were like sleepers. He's not really a sleeper to me, but this is a guy outside of the top 30 I think you can get a little bit of value with, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper in my bag because that's what I do. So KJ Osborn going up against Green Bay, and I think this is a guy who could probably get double-digit points on the week. And we talk about this matchup against the Packers, who have been pretty good fantasy-wise against the wide receiver position. 7th hardest matchup for wide receivers. But then slot receivers is kind of their vulnerability, right? We talk about an elite corner in Jair Alexander. Probably going to see a lot of Jordan Addison there on the other side, opening things up for KJ Osborn, who's had 3 consecutive weeks of 40-plus yards or more since Justin Jefferson's been out. So obviously Kirk's leaned his way. This total isn't super high, but it indicates, hey, Kirk's probably got to spread the ball around and not be able to do what he did against my Niners on Monday night. So KJ Osborn, give him 440 and a score.
Okay, all right. I love the confidence there from you, Justin. Eric, how do you feel about KJ Osborn, kind of the forgotten man all of a sudden in Minnesota?
Yeah, he is kind of the forgotten man, but he's out there plenty, right? And
he's running them sprints, man. Yeah,
my guy's keeping his cardio on point. And if you're out there enough, like Kirk Cousins throws the ball enough to where those spike weeks are going to come. And this Green Bay secondary, like they're right around league average in some areas. They're above league average in others, but they still have a pretty like kind of weirdly high catch rate. So wherever Osborn's getting targets this week, he's got a better chance to haul him in than he would otherwise. And he's done some stuff with the ball in his hands, right? Like in limited opportunities, he's shown a little flash. So I don't mind the call at all.
Okay, Eric, and where are you going with your Sure Thing Sleeper of the Week? Also something to keep in mind there with the Green Bay game. We don't know if Jair Alexander is going to be active. We also know that Eric Stokes and Darnell Savage have recently been put on IR as well. So banged up Packer secondary kind of makes me like KJ even a little bit more. But Eric, over to you, my friend.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna keep going back to the well here, and that is firing up your running backs against the Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, we saw Donta Foreman go nuts for the Bears last week, but this week it looks like we're gonna have Roschon Johnson come back. Technically, Donta Foreman is not an outside of the top 30, so he isn't to be considered. But Roschon's right there, and while Foreman, had the explosion week, right, 30+ fantasy points. He did it on 16 carries, and that was only about half of the work out of that backfield. So I expect Roschon Johnson to come in and gobble up all 14 carries that Darrington Evans had and potentially chip into the workload for Donta Foreman against a Chargers front that has actually regressed back to form from last season. They were the only team last year that allowed 2 yards before contact to opposing running backs. They got incrementally better. They were floating around like 1.9, 1.92. Last week, they finally got back into 2022 form. They're again 2.0 yards before contact. Like, you give a skilled rusher like Roschon Johnson 2 yards of momentum before anybody even lays a hand on him, and it sets up for him to have a gorgeous week.
Justin, I want to put you on the spot here from a betting perspective in this game. The Bears, they were great underdogs if you bet them against the spread last week. Is there any value here for this Sunday night matchup?
There's always value, especially in primetime games. A lot of teams get up for primetime matchups, but I also think this is a bounce back spot for the Chargers, a team that went up against the Chiefs last week, and a lot of people were on the Chargers to win that game. But for me, from fantasy perspective, I like to play with the running backs here. I feel like this is going to be a tough outing for Tyson Bagent, who's had a lot of success so far and looked poised as a young quarterback. I think this matchup on paper, it seems right, but this Charger offense, when it's hot, can put up some points. So I think he might have a little trouble scoring, keeping up with the Chargers this game. Give me the Chargers.
Okay, 8.5-point favorites out there in LA for the Chargers. And I want to get to a comment here in the chat. We have someone asking, is Henderson playing or not? We don't have confirmation on this right now. He was sent back to the practice squad earlier this week, but he can be elevated again. I am expecting that's probably the case. But I'll be honest here, man, like, I'm not in on Darrell Henderson this week. We touched on it earlier in the show. This is a really good Cowboys defense against the running back position. They've held people like Breece Hall, Austin Eckler to really low point totals. So just be aware of that, man. I wrote more on that on the website in my latest column. So if you want to check out that, inbetweenmedia.com, go to the first story that's been posted today or yesterday that was, and you can find that. So like that call there from you, Eric. I'm going to go back to this Minnesota game, and I don't think people need to go this deep, but if you guys are struggling for a running back this week, can I offer you some Cam Slam? Thank you, ma'am. Akers, baby. Give me some Cam Akers here, and we are going a little deep, but 39% of the snaps last week in an offense, it's finally finding itself, as Justin kind of alluded to, 3 targets, 1 red zone touch for Cam Akers. And the Packers defense, I don't know why. I felt like they had really good upfront personnel this season, but they've just been atrocious against the running back all season long. And their top 3 matchup coming into this, 4 TDs allowed to the position over the last 4 weeks. So if you're in a league like Scott Fishbowl or a 16-team plus or just in a 12-team league and are struggling to find desperation RB2 play, Cam Akers, I'm interested here. I think he can get you 10 PPR points in a little bit of a contrarian move, maybe a DFS option as well, Eric.
Yeah, contrarian is a good way to put it. You simply cannot click the button on Cam Akers without, feeling the need to hold your nose. But your analysis is spot on, right? Like, more and more he is emerging as a thing in this offense. It certainly chips away at the value of Alexander Mattison, who profiles very similarly to like a Najee Harris, where he just needs volume. But you look at how they used Cam Akers last week, right? Like, he wasn't out on the field as much as Mattison, but he was right at 50% in terms of rush attempt share, ran a ton of routes, saw a target on 25% of those routes, 50% of short down and distance snaps, 15% of long down and distance snaps, right? Like, it is a even timeshare between him and Alexander Mattison, at least as last week is evidence. And so now you're looking at, week 8, where Madison's projected to outscore him by like 6.5 points. And I don't really understand why, because they're fairly comparable players and they're getting about an even workload.
Justin, how do you weigh in on this Minnesota backfield here?
Yeah, this is tough, man, because we've seen Madison, take over the workload, and then they traded for Cam Akers, and he chipped away at the workload, and then we saw full touches from Madison. And so I'm kind of getting mixed feelings on Cam Akers being on the field for 39% of the snaps last week because it was a short week. And so with that being said, I'm kind of thinking, maybe they go back to a normal, where Madison's taking 60-40, Ty Chandler's still getting a little bit of involvement in there. But I do have some concerns just in general with this backfield. We don't know the usage. So I don't think it's a bad idea going with Cam Akers as a Hail Mary, because if he does continue, to kind of chip away at the workload, there's ample opportunity against this defense. It's just which one is going to get the most touches. We don't know at this point. So that's where I'm at with Cam Akers, Madison, kind of staying away from both of those guys right now.
Okay. And hopefully it's a better Hail Mary than last night. I mean, great ball by Baker Mayfield. Chris Godwin was just not looking for it.
Where you at, my guy? Like,
stuck his hand out. It was like a magnet. He stuck his hand out and it still went right by him.
It was insane, man. It was insane. I feel bad for Bucs fans this morning, but either way, Justin, we can't thank you enough for being here with us, man, spreading some good vibes on this Feel Good Friday. Tell us how we can find you and best support you, not only throughout the remainder of the 2023 season, but beyond, my friend.
Yeah, I'm on social media, Justin Henry with a 3 instead of an E. You can find me wherever. I'm all over TikTok, YouTube, not as much on Twitter anymore, but you can find me, man. If you're on TikTok and you like fantasy football, you probably see my face at some point. But Justin Henry with a 3 instead of an E, or Justin Henry Show, live daily show that I do on YouTube.
Hell yeah. Well, you guys heard him. Check him out. Open up a new tab here on YouTube. Go subscribe to the Justin Henry Show. And thanks so much for being here with us, Justin. Eric, I appreciate your presence here as well. Everyone, enjoy week number 8. Enjoy the Halloween weekend, baby. This is our time. Don't be TPing any fucking houses. I need Eric up on a fucking ladder on his roof trying to clean out TP. That's not going to help anyone. So just respect your neighbors. That's all I say. Am I right, my friends?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I might go TP somebody. There's a few of you guys I don't like in the comments.
Get him, man.
I appreciate it, guys. Keep it real. Keep it in between till next time, and we'll see you soon.